Blowouts.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on this brand new segment called One More Thing, it is one more takeaway from Syracuse basketball's loss to Louisville last night, 85-61. And we are joined by Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. You can find his socials in the description below this podcast. Neil, thank you so much for taking the time. And to kick off the one more thing, there is one more takeaway from this, and that is blowouts. Since Adrian Autry took over as the head coach of Syracuse basketball last season, the Orange have lost 21 games.
Mm-hmm.
How many of those games do you think have been by double digits?
A lot of them. I know there was a couple this year. And by the way, thanks for having me on this new segment. Appreciate it, Jackson. I know they lost a few games this year. They were close. The games in Brooklyn initially, not Maryland, but in Georgetown and Notre Dame. So that's, I'm counting in my head, but most from last year, I don't know. So 21, I would say at least 14 or 15.
Wow. Look at you doing your homework. It's not 14 or 15. It's 14.
Okay.
The Orange under Adrian Autry, when they lose games, they lose by 10 or more points 67% of the time, which is what we saw last night between Syracuse and Louisville. Right. What do you make of that?
Well, it's from a fan perspective, is it better to lose like at the buzzer, or is it better to just get blown out and then you just don't stress over it? No, I mean, I say that in jest. Of course, you want to be competitive. And that was a theme last year when I think Autry did a pretty good job with a young team and taking over from Jim Boeheim and a tough schedule and winning 20 regular season games for the first time in a decade. They missed the tournament for the third straight year, but I still thought it was a solid job. Even though my biggest gripe was that when they did lose, they lost big. And then so for this year, it's a more veteran team, but there's a lot of new faces. And so we can talk about that as being, they need time to gel. Like, you can talk about that for a little bit of time at the beginning of the season, but we're in mid-January now, as you and I think have talked about recently. So, and other teams have revamped rosters every year as well, whether it's transfers or prep recruits. What do I make of it? I don't want to sit here and say that Syracuse players aren't like trying hard. Like I never really want to, but I'll tell you last night what frustrated me. And I mentioned this in my article, my game recap, and I'm a pretty positive alum, very positive alum mostly. It did seem to me, and even the broadcasters, I don't know if it was Devendorf or Doug Sherman, made this point, like in the second half when the game was just, it was decided. I mean, it was a huge margin. It just seemed like even though Louisville was winning big, they were still the team that was out hustling Syracuse all the time. Or I shouldn't say all the time, but just frequently. And like, for me, fine. Louisville is not a great 3-point shooting team. And obviously they hit some threes, and Syracuse was not good on offense or defense last. It was just a bad game, and it was a bad loss at home, a blowout loss. But you got to keep grinding. You got to keep fighting. It just seemed like I never want to say they're waving the white flag, throwing in the towel, to use cliches, but it was awful. So, for me, losing these, and I feel like Autry might have touched on that in his presser. It's like they're close, and then like the other team just goes on a run, and Syracuse just can't recover. And it just becomes a wide margin. I mean, again, they've lost some close games this year, but then this was, I think, the third blowout, and it's just a really frustrating time, Jackson. I love my boys in Orange, but and look, obviously Donnie being out is tough, but they wouldn't have won that game even with Donnie yesterday. And Jair Davis has been playing better, and Eddie had his third double-double in a row. So I don't necessarily think it's better to have Donnie there, but they lost by 24 points. They weren't going to win with him there anyway. So I don't know, man. I mean, they got Notre Dame at home on Saturday. They've already lost to Notre Dame. albeit by 5 on the road. So hopefully they can, but obviously JJ Starling needs to get going. And there's just, the fan base, people were leaving early, and obviously folks I interact with on social media, they're frustrated, understandably, talking about, why is this person playing and this person not playing? And is, Elijah Moore going to leave after this year? And why would Donnie stick around for this? And people are just frustrated. Yeah. So yeah, it's, some of that I kind of say, well, let's kind of pump the brakes on that, but it's, they're not good. They're not a good team. I mean, it's just, there's no other way to put it.
You're 100% spot on that. And to your point about the runs,
yeah,
this is something that I really noticed with Syracuse basketball. If you have been watching or listening to basketball long enough, you know that the game is about runs.
Sure.
Teams are going to go on runs. It's just, that's how a game goes. A team's going to be leading by 9, and then 7 minutes later, another team's up by 9. And you're like, oh my goodness, an 18-point swing right there. And it just constantly goes back and forth. It seems like when Syracuse basketball gets punched, they cannot recover. And you could say it's a talent thing because Louisville has more talent. No question. But it's also a mentality thing. It's just this team, they give up a 10-0 run and the world stops for them. It's like the game is over. I'm like, it's not over. You have a whole half to go. Or how about just maybe put together 1 or 2 stops, get a couple of buckets? Syracuse basketball in this game against Louisville was kind of doing that. And then Louisville just has that one run at the end of the first half. And Syracuse just, instead of trying to battle back, or I shouldn't say trying, but instead of battling back in the second half and trying to chip away and make this a respectable game, they just let it got completely out of hand.
Sure.
I mean, there's a reason why I was preparing my post-game podcast at the under-16 media timeout. I already knew what I was going to say. I've seen this team long enough. They ain't coming back. It's not even that they ain't coming back. They're not going to make this competitive. And there's no excuse when you're down by double-digit points in the second half to be out-hustled. I mean, you're the team that should be out-hustling them. You should be doing everything in your power to come back. It was just lackluster last night. And I don't mean disrespect to Louisville. I complimented Louisville tremendously.
No, they're having a good
night. Yeah. That team's going to make the tournament.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my second question here, Neil.
Yeah.
After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look to start the new year, WayFair has everything you need, all within your budget. I'm currently looking for furniture, and their huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style and budget. My favorite part, the free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. WayFair's sites is so easy to navigate, and I found everything I needed in no time. Give your home the refresh it needs with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WayFair.com. WayFair. Every style, every home. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions or spending habits or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Once again, we're joined by Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. One more thing, one more takeaway, brand new segment here on the Locked On Syracuse podcast. After every single game, myself, and maybe I'll be joined by a guest frequently, will give one more takeaway on the game. Neil, is this team going to beat a tournament team this year?
Beat a tournament team? Well, part of that question, Jackson, is how many teams are they going to face the rest of the way that are going to make the tournament? I mean,
That's a great point. I guess I
that's
should say, I'll rephrase that to.
oh no, I'm just messing with
Yeah.
you. I mean, we've talked about this. Obviously, the ACC, the perception that it's for the third or fourth year, it's down in terms of the number of teams getting in. Granted, in recent years, even if they only get 5 teams in, 1 or 2 teams go to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. Obviously, Duke looks real. I watched Duke last night, although they were playing Miami, and Miami is just not good. But Duke looks really good. But Louisville, is there. North Carolina, I'm sure will be there. We'll see about Pittsburgh. Who am I missing? So Clemson. So I mean, again, okay. So let's just assume 4 to 6 teams. So like a median of 5 kind of was where we are.
Sure.
There are legitimately fans that, interact with on the Loud House social media. And certainly there's some doom and gloom right now and a lot of pessimism that frankly, so they're 8 and 9, that they don't think they're going to win more than 10 to 12 games. That's sad. I hate thinking about that, but it's possible. I mean,
are they wrong?
No, not necessarily. No, I mean, and that's what frustrates me the most. And of course, I'm not even answering your question here. But what frustrates me is they get the 2 wins, albeit Georgia Tech and Boston College aren't necessarily great teams either. But they get 2 wins after Johnny is out, and so like it's at least like you feel like you can build off that, and then you just. Again, without Donnie last night, I didn't think they were going to win regardless of their recent momentum building. But to lay that dud, I mean, that's just anyway. So to answer your question, they get both Duke and North Carolina just at home. I don't have the whole schedule, but I know they play Pittsburgh home and away every year.
So I can go through the schedule for you.
Yeah,
I'll just give the teams that in the ACC, barring these are the teams that could get in at large. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll go in order. You got at Clemson on January 22nd. That's a week from now.
Yeah, I don't see Syracuse winning that game.
Yeah, neither do I. Saturday, January 25th, you got Pitt at home.
Well, again, Pitt is, a solid team. I'd like to think when Syracuse is at home, they have a better chance, although look what happened last night. But you know what? I'll try and have a little bit of optimism. I'll say that when is that game again? What's the date?
January 25th. So 10
that's
days
right. It's a week from Saturday. Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed that Donnie's back. And I'm gonna say they win that game.
I hope Donnie's back. I mean, they listed him as day-to-day on the Syracuse website. This is not day-to-day anymore.
Was it you that wrote it's more like week to week, or someone wrote?
This seems like week to week.
Yeah.
I wrote that to you in a DM last
okay, that's what it was.
This is turning into a week to week. Like, don't come at me for reporting that it's day-to-day, because I'm just relaying the information that Syracuse basketball is telling the public. It's publicly out there. They keep saying he's day-to-day. He's been out for 3 games. I don't know how much longer does he have to be out before we consider him week to week. That's neither here nor there.
Right.
So you say they might beat Pitt at home. Okay, fine. Maybe they do beat Pitt at home. That might be their best win.
I mean, I'm just like, if there's one that maybe they could grab,
Maybe.
Yeah.
Duke at home?
No.
On February 5th?
No
miracles?
No. Is John Gillen going to suit up and bank in a 3 at the buzzer? No, again, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just being real. Even at home, Duke, I just think they'll feast all over. And I hope, and as an aside, and I know a lot of fans, once guys transfer out, are like, whatever. But, Malik Brown's out with an injury. I hope he's, gets back in.
I hope he's all right too.
Yeah. But I don't see Syracuse winning that game.
Maybe if Cooper Flagg doesn't get off the bus, maybe it's just too cold. He doesn't want to walk the 10 feet from the bus to the dome.
Right.
He just decides to stay on the bus.
Stud, man. What do you have, 42 the other day?
He's an NBA player. I mean, he's the number 1 pick. He was the number 1. He was an NBA player in high school. That's how good the kid is.
I know.
You got North Carolina.
Yeah.
February 15th.
It's like North Carolina. It's they don't have a great record, although they faced a really tough non-conference. And Syracuse did beat them at home last year. They got a couple former Syracuse recruits on their team, L.A. Cadeau and Ian Jackson, who was teammates with Moore, Choppa. But again, just based on where we are right now, and I just don't see Syracuse winning that game.
All right. Then you got at Pittsburgh on February 18th.
Well, if I'm like hesitant to pick Syracuse to beat Pittsburgh at home, I'm probably gonna have to pick Pittsburgh to win at their place. So yeah.
All right. And then finally, there was one team that I was leaving out. And if an
Okay.
SMU fan somehow found this podcast, I apologize. But we're
Oh, the
getting to you now
Mustangs.
because SMU is another team that could get in at large bid.
Mm-hmm.
They are on March 4th at SMU. It's the second last game of the regular season.
Right. Yeah, doesn't Syracuse host Virginia in the season finale?
That's the final game. Virginia's
Yeah.
not getting in at large.
Yeah, no, they're not good. Understandably with Benetcon. But I don't know. I mean, again, it's so far down the road and we don't know where this team will be, but having to travel to SMU and, in the Dallas area, I'll pick Syracuse to lose. So for all the teams you're talking about, I think again, as we sit today, I feel like their best chance is Pittsburgh at home.
I tend to agree with you.
But I mean, that's kind of
Carolina, maybe.
home. Maybe. I mean, it's North Carolina. I've watched a few of their games. They got a ton of talent, obviously, but again, my whole thing is, and I don't know if we talked about it last time or we've talked about it just, offline, is it's like I want to see where the Syracuse team could be when they've got all their pieces there, when they've got healthy Donnie and with JJ back, although JJ obviously struggled last night, but he's put in some good games since coming back. It's just the team. Well, first of all, last night it was just so blah on both ends of the court, but it's like, there's no consistency. Like, again, Eddie and Jair have been good the last few games. Cuff's had some good minutes. Elijah Moore's done nothing, but he's also not played much. And all these fans were like, why isn't Elijah playing more? You start him and then he plays 6 minutes and he's a shooter. You got to keep him in there. And why is Carlos playing at all? And my argument would be, well, I don't want to see Carlos playing 40 minutes a game, but people are shredding him. And I don't think this team is where it is just because of Carlos. I think it's a larger thing, so anyway, we'll see, but it's at this point, and I hate acknowledging this, but just being honest with you, I don't see this team finishing above 500.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the worst Syracuse team since 1969. I'm not. It's because they only have one under 500 season since 1969, and that was a couple of years ago.
It was 21-22 when they were 16 and 17.
21-22. Yeah, that team was better than their record indicates.
Well, they were really good on offense. They were not a good defensive team. But that was with the Boeheim brother. I mean, they were a good 3-point shooting team, if I remember correctly. They couldn't play defense.
Correct. They had no defense, but they were very good on offense.
Yeah.
And that game, contrary to what we led off this show talking about with all the blowouts, if you go look back at that 2022 Syracuse team, they lost so many close games.
Right.
They were in like almost every single game they played in, with the exception of the Duke game. And where did they go? They went to the Bahamas, I believe. And they got blown out in a couple of games there.
Right.
But aside from that, they were in a lot of games. They blew a couple big leads to Miami. That was a tournament team. Mm-hmm. They should have beaten Carolina that year. They were in the game against a good Virginia team that year, I want to say. They were even if their record wasn't that good, they were better than their record indicated. Were they a tournament team? No, but they were better than 16 and 17 that year they finished. This team might finish 14 and 18 or 13 and 19, and that might be more generous than really how good or bad they are.
It's really a shame, and and obviously the beyond just where the team is, there's just the ongoing theme story, whatever you want to call it, is just should Autry keep his job? Should he be let go now? Should he be let go at the end of the season? There, one guy I follow online that does bracketologies and stuff, and he's a good dude and knows this. He's like I'm probably not quoting him verbatim, but he was basically like, I don't care that they have an awesome 2025 recruiting class coming in. Autry should be let go, assuming the season continues as it is. And it's like, like you can make the argument either way, but it's just going to be the dominant story, and it's a shame. It's a shame.
It is. Neil, where can people find you?
They can find me commiserating and crying on my pillow, and they can find me at so our website is insidetheloudhouse.com. The X Twitter is loudhousefs, and I am personally at Damn Twin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil. That is one more thing. That is a wrap up of Syracuse basketball's blowout loss to Louisville last night, 85-61. I'm Jackson Holzer. That's Neil Adler, and we'll see you all again really soon.